So I wanted to talk about Lego, about testing in a way, because I'm testing something else today, but this time it's not related to Bionicle. It is related to Lego. More or less, it's related to Lego Technic. Why am I testing this? Well, recently, within the last couple of years, I have noticed a pretty dramatic change in Technic, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse, but overall, the changes I have seen, I will say I have liked, and there's a bit of an asterisk I need to put in that, a pin to put in that, because I have noticed one thing I have not been a huge fan of. When I pull brand new pieces out of the box, out of the bag for the very first time, I notice this shine to them that feels a little bit abnormal, but that's fine. It's plastic, right? However, I feel a little bit like a greasy feel that wasn't there before, and that has bothered me for a while. Now, it's something that I can get over, and it seems that over time it is a feeling that seems to go away, maybe with exposure to the atmosphere. Maybe it's just me. Maybe there's something in my mind that seems like it doesn't experience this feel anymore. But in the past, I have talked about a piece that LEGO designed recently that I think has been a total failure, or at least a failure in its first year. And it is this piece right here. Now, this video is not about this piece, and I do understand that it is hard to see, but long story short, it is slightly different from this piece, the older version, with this little bit of plastic between two little crevices on each side. No, this piece is the modern version of it, and it's sad to see the old version go, because although it's nice to see a nice flush texture here, it is kind of ruined by that sprue mark, which is unfortunate, but whatever. I'm not a designer. I don't know why they had to put it there. However, what I wanted to test in this video is sort of something else. So I've made a video in the past where I kind of lambasted LEGO for not producing the Mixel joints, the Mixel sockets, the Mixel ball pieces, whatever the case may be, in other colors. And my reason for that is not because they don't exist in other colors. They do, but rarely do we see them in colors outside of light gray and dark gray. And I have had so many people come to the defense of LEGO saying, well, they can't be. There's tolerance reasons. And here's the thing. I do understand that different colors give plastics different properties, but a couple of things that you need to take into consideration here. The site in which they source for that is a designer saying it during an interview. And that easily could have just been a quick thing to say, because I maybe don't have the exact answer at the time. I have not seen that interview yet. I do plan to try and source it in the future. Someone I'm sure has probably sourced it in one of my other videos, and I may have overlooked it or forgot. I do apologize for that. But the point being, it's not even really about what has necessarily been said, because LEGO does not produce one type of plastic. And all different plastics have many, many different properties. These are just some of the plastics that LEGO does produce. And yes, those are acronyms for, longer names. You've got things like polypropylene here, polycarbonate, etc., right? But at the end of the day, they do produce other different types of plastics for different purposes. And when LEGO was designing the Mixel joints, all the way back when Mixels were first being developed, it's likely that if they did run into a high failure rate with these pieces, they probably would have switched to a different plastic, because those color discrepancies aren't just the same for every type of plastic, right? If you have a color that's maybe brittle in one type of plastic, it doesn't mean that that's going to hold true for every type. If an ABS piece that I produce is suddenly going to explode when I look at it in lime green, well, maybe making it out of polycarbonate is the answer, or something else, right? And LEGO knows this. They've been developing plastics for, well, a long time, let's say. Rather, I like to give them the benefit of the doubt with this stuff. I imagine they probably haven't had a huge need to produce these parts in new colors, because honestly, the biggest driver of that, yeah, in part is going to be the fans, but is also going to be brands that they work with, right? So, I recently watched a video that JANGBRiCKS put out talking specifically about the Green Lantern SCCBS build, which looks fantastic, by the way, and I will link that at the end of this video here, or rather, in the description of this video here, so you can check it out for yourself. But very briefly, he touches on the fact that, no, in fact, these sockets, the Mixel pieces, are not locked to any specific color. Now, maybe that's just an estimation on his part. I don't know where he got that information, but I believe it. I don't think they are locked behind those colors, because here's the thing. LEGO put out a brand new Mixel recolor for that Green Lantern set. Now, I've had some people say, well, it's not really a Mixel part, but it's used in a way that a Mixel set would have used it. In this case, obviously being an SCCBS character, it is a larger piece, but it has a toe ball that is used to connect directly into a socket. And if people are defending LEGO saying, well, the socket and the ball can't be recolored and still work together the same way, then that should hold true here too. We shouldn't see it in green. We should see it in the colors it has traditionally appeared in, like black, because it appeared in that color well before Mixels were being developed, as well as colors like light gray and dark gray. But the fact that LEGO did make it in green in 2024 and used it alongside a Mixel socket suggests to me that no, it doesn't have to be that way. And here's the thing too, they've also made sockets, Mixel sockets, in colors that are not light gray and are not dark gray. I talked about this in a video in and of itself, where they made a socket in yellow and utilized it against a ball that was black. Now, in that set, it was connected to a string, so like, yeah, there are other things here too, but I did test the piece, and it worked just fine. Will it break? I don't know, maybe. But Mixel sockets do break. I don't know if you're aware of that. I've had plenty of mine break. I don't use them that often because they are kind of prone to breaking, even in 2024 with brand new pieces. That said, what I wanted to test today was sort of this difference between these Technic pieces, because I said I'm hopeful for the future. Here's the thing. I have been building with Technic for a very long time. I don't tend to build like Technic vehicles, but I do build a lot of animals and other builds from Bionicle, and thus I use a lot of Technic pieces in those builds. Lots of lift arms, but especially lots of pins and axles. And I have seen over time pieces like this be sheared completely in half, just sitting in a piece. Surely it probably got something set on it or whatever that crushed it and ended up shearing that piece. But what I have liked so far, at the very least, about the new types of pins is, yes, although they feel a little bit more greasy, from my connection of them, they feel a little bit more secure. They don't have that same kind of click feel that the old style of pins have, at least some of them, and there have been many revisions of this piece as well. But at the very least, they feel more secure once they're in place, and they also feel easier to remove. It's like they connect better, but they want to let go better too. However, they don't lose any sort of grip from my testing. So what I ended up doing was actually doing a very simple, dead simple test, honestly, where I took 2 lift arms, both of 15 length. I connected a pin on one side, connect those lift arms together, and then literally all I did was I picked a point along that lift arm, like this hole here, and pushed it up against a scale. Is that going to give me a very accurate result? No, absolutely not. But at the very least, will it give me a relative result if I measure it against another thing? Yeah, it should, in theory. And from my testing, the newer version of the pin had substantially more friction than the old. Is it going to be a difference that you will notice? I don't know. But at the very least, it's there, it's worth noting, and it's worth praising in all honesty. Even when I do something like this, feeling the old type of pin versus the new type of pin, I can feel a difference. Part of that might just be bias in my brain knowing that there is a difference here. And I'm glad to see it. But I can only speak to the pins that I have in my disposal, and of course some of these pins are old. They've been worn down and stuff over time, so I can't say that my tests are truly scientific or 100% accurate. But something else that I have seen that I have really appreciated is another new piece. This piece right here has existed in LEGO for a very long time. If you've owned, say, the Terracotta set from Bionicle, for example, then you're very familiar with this piece because it came with those sets as well. But the old ones were very prone to snapping where this bushing is. The newer ones are much more reinforced, and at the very least, from my experience, just kind of feeling them, do feel to be a different plastic. This just might be a different type of ABS since LEGO is starting to move more towards like plant-based materials and things, and that's all cool, and more sustainable materials in general, or it may be one of the other types of plastic that LEGO produces. Honestly, I don't know, but what I do know is that I have not yet had any of these axles snap, and boy howdy, it's a good feeling because I have so many of these where I've had to create my own special bin for the ones that are broken. I like to save broken pieces to see if maybe I can refurbish them in the future, although I don't ever plan to do so. It's nice to have at least some in the background, especially when they're rare colors like old dark gray, for example, or dark turquoise for this as well, right? So something else I decided to do was, again, go ahead and test that newer version of this piece because this is the one piece that I have complained about from the new series. These pins not have, or rather, these pin holes not having as much friction as the old pin holes. And that's a problem with this piece specifically. Not a problem with the pins that are connected to it, not a problem with any sort of like axle. It just seems to be a problem with the geometry of that piece. I don't know if it's something at a technical level, at a tolerance level. Yeah, I'm sinking as I set that scale on the floor. But what I did to test this is very simple. I take two of these pieces, and what I did was I just connected a borax eye to one of these. This is just one type of test I came up with. It's dead simple, but it does seem to be pretty effective. I put the pieces together, both of them on that bushing here, and then I try to spin those pieces and see which one turns that bushing. In theory, that should mean that the one that turns, did I say turn the bushing? Turn that borax eye. The one that turns that borax eye, in theory, should have more friction. And technically, this is at an advantage because it's contacting the bushing, meaning more surface is contacting that bushing from this material. Of course, I tested it in both directions, so I pulled this out, put it in on the opposite side to see if anything changes, and sure enough, the gray one still turns the borax eye in both cases. I also tested it with the older style of pin bushing as well. It's just one kind of test, of course, testing this in multiple colors, not just white. I have a black one here. I have a green one somewhere, I think on that Bobrog spider in the background as well. So I've tested those. I haven't tested the green one yet, but I've tested the black ones at the very least, and this seems to hold true. It is something that I noticed when I bought the John Deere tractor, the very first one back in like, I don't know, 2022 or 2023, whenever that was. And as soon as I got those pieces, I was so happy because they were a recolor. The first time we saw them in green, and then I put a pin into it, and I was like, why do these spin so freely? It was a friction pin, and yet I could hold the piece, and the piece would just hang on a friction pin. That shouldn't happen, so I hoped and I prayed that LEGO would fix it, and at the very least, they do seem slightly better, but they're still nowhere near the quality that they once were. So hopefully that is something that LEGO sorts out in the future. Obviously, we've been seeing more and more changes with Technic pieces, even some little changes that really nobody asked for, but I think it's pretty good, like the little mark here being moved in between the actual pinholes on the side. Obviously, for some people, that's going to annoy them, but I think in more cases than not, that's a pretty good move on their part. So hopefully, we see the same happen for this, and the mold mark goes from the outside to the inside, so it gets covered up when the item is being used. That's basically it for this one, guys. Just know that just because somebody says something can't be done and they source somebody else, look at the context. Sometimes people just say it because, hey, it's a quick answer. Currently, we're not doing it. It's technically true, at least right now. Or if it's not true, at the very least, it's not false. Because the thing is, yes, different colors of plastics have different properties. Anything that you add to the plastic is not only going to add aesthetic differences, but it is going to affect the material itself. We've known this for decades and decades. It is true, but LEGO knows it too. And trust me, they have ways around it. Does that mean everything will not be color locked? No, of course not. But I don't think that the Mixel joints are. I think just so far we haven't seen them released to the public. And before I end this one, LEGO has made them in other colors too. I do remember briefly seeing a post on Instagram by JANGBRiCKS where he got a behind-the-scenes tour, I believe, of the LEGO house, and there are some Mixel joints in there that are brown, that are black, that are other colors as well, obviously for use by LEGO employees, right? Because they do have to test some of this stuff, and, you know, they use it in, like, Legoland and stuff, so they get parts that are produced in colors that never see mass production, that never see the public at all, and it's really cool stuff. It's really fascinating. I really implore you to look out for that kind of content, so I would suggest going and following JANGBRiCKS over there on Instagram as well. He's been posting a lot of that stuff, and, you know, rightfully so, right? So with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Really helps out. And of course, you can take the conversation further down in the comments. Please try to be civil on this one. This isn't an opinion thing from me, and I'm sure that I got some of this information wrong, because at the end of the day, I don't have any inside knowledge. LEGO makes the choices that they make, and we deal with it, and that's fine. I'm not clamoring to get Mixel joints in new colors, but it would be nice at some point in the future, especially as we see more and more development in SCCBS. But we can take that conversation further over on the Discord, or you can check out Instagram or Patreon if you want to help support this channel and what it is I do here. I'll see y'all in the next one. Take care.